Good morning. Can you create a stronger family environment through collecting antiques or using antiques? My name is Jason Roski. I'm the owner of the Casey Auction and Appraisal Company here in Kansas City, Missouri, and you're watching Behind the Gavel with Jason on this Friday afternoon. Thank you. Friday afternoon. Thanks so much for watching. We're going to be talking about, can you create a stronger family connection, stronger relationships through collecting antiques and or using antiques, and what does that look like, and what are some of the reasons to do that? We read a lot and hear a lot and see a lot about how, the quote of the day is always, nobody wants your parents' stuff, nobody wants your stuff if you're the parents' age. And so what can be done to help alleviate that situation? What can be done to make that not as prevalent today as it feels like it is? I think that sentimentality has always been there, but it's still a real valid concern. The baby boomer generation obviously is the largest generation we've ever had. They have had an incredible effect and impact on our economy and collecting styles and tastes and habits for the last 50 years. And so what can be done as they age now, but also for the generations after that, Generation X, millennials, what can be done to instill passion and interest in antiques and art and estate items today, tomorrow, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years from now? What things can be done today to make those things reality? And I think one of the things that can be done with that is to create, I'm going to share this on my page real quick. One of the things I feel that can be done is to create a shared passion. If grandma or grandpa or mom and dad collected baseball cards but didn't share that with anybody while they were collecting, it's just dad's little thing he did to escape from family or to relive his childhood. But when you combine your family with that, my dad and I, when I was a kid, did collect baseball cards together. We went to baseball card shows all up and down the East Coast. We lived in New Jersey at the time, and we collected baseball cards together. And it really instilled from an early age that idea of spending time with my dad in an area that wasn't normal. It was not unnormal, but a lot of people weren't doing it. A lot of people don't do today, but it was a passion that we both shared. My dad was from and raised in Minnesota before the Twins were around, obviously. And so he said he collected Brooklyn Dodgers. He was a huge Brooklyn Dodgers fan. And he said, in Minnesota, you could either get the Chicago teams on the radio, the Cubs, or you could hear the Yankees or the Dodgers. And he said, I didn't like Chicago, and everybody hated the Yankees, so he was a Dodgers fan. Me being the contrarian teenager as I was, I gravitated towards and collected New York Giants stuff. So he was looking for Jackie Robinson. I was looking for Willie Mays and all the players around that. So it was a lot of fun, and we still talk about doing those things today, going to the autograph shows / baseball card shows and getting autographs from Hall of Famers like Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio and Willie Mays and Duke Snider and Luke Appling and all these great historical baseball players. Well, we're also looking for baseball cards. And of course, we both like things from the Minnesota Twins. And so we had a really defined area that was just dad and I, that we could share upon it and grow a relationship together, that we wouldn't have that part of that depth of relationship if we hadn't done it. We see a lot of this happening with people today buying at our auctions. Mom and dad come in with their daughter or their son or their entire families looking at art or looking at silver or looking at the furniture and rugs and sharing that passion with their children as they grow up. Even as they're young, teenagers are hard. Obviously, we all know that, with all the challenges that teenagedom has with children. We have two of them sitting in our house. But as young adults, sharing those same stories and having that connection. Mom likes this paintings by this artist. If I see it, I'll make sure she knows about it. And you establish a connection and a relationship and a depth of relationship that you just can't in other areas. And one of the areas, and we talk about this pretty much every year, especially at this time in Kansas City, we're 2 weeks from Thanksgiving. We had our first pretty snow of the year last night, inch to 3 inches around town. Everything looked beautiful. It's a heavy, wet snow. The leaves there's still green leaves. There's still red leaves and yellow leaves on the ground and in the trees. It's just a spectacular winter wonderland to wake up to this morning. And it's all pretty much gone this afternoon. So it's the best of all worlds. But it brings up the holidays. And I love the holidays. But one of the things we talk about every year, both here on Behind the Gavel with Jason, to people in person, and just to people everywhere, is for many people, this is the only time of the year that they use the good china. They use the crystal, they use the silver. And that's fantastic that you use it then. But I say use it every night of the week. Use it all the time and engage your children in it. Explain to them why it's important to you. Why did you choose that set of china when you got married? Is it a set you got from your parents, your grandparents? And talk about that history, and also talk about why it's important to you, so they know, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, they'll have a much deeper appreciation for it. I grew up in the generation of don't touch that. I grew up in the generation of plastic on the furniture because the furniture was so valuable. And that sends a lot of messages to children. But first and foremost is that the item is more important than the child. If you can't touch an object, why would you invest time to investigate it and get emotionally attached to it when you're not allowed to touch it? You're not supposed to touch it. Breakage happens. That's part of life. One of the favorite stories in my household, my family, is my brother and I, when we were, young, I don't know how old, 8, 10, 12 years old, something like that. We were at my grandma and grandpa's house while mom and dad were out with grandma and grandpa for dinner, and we got to tussling, and we were throwing pillows back and forth at each other in the living room, and knocked over a lamp. Nobody was happy about it, but it's a great story, and nobody died. I mean, it was, we got in trouble. I'm sure we got grounded. We got all kinds of things. But honestly, that was part of growing up. That should be part of growing up for your children. When you're using, when you're having family over, use the good china for coffee. Just say, hey, what you want a cup of coffee? And bring out the Dalton china or the Minton china or the Balik or the Noritake or the Nippon, whatever yours is. Just bring it out. And something else to think about. Part of the reason that antiques and stuff aren't as valued today is that obviously we look different as a society today. We've talked at length about the changing family, size and shape and roles. But physically, we are all bigger. I am bigger than my dad, and so is my brother. And my wife's brothers are bigger than her family, parents. And historically, we are a larger physically than ever before. My fingers don't fit into a fine china cup and saucer from the 1930s, but there are cups and saucers from that time frame that they can fit into. So if you are the collector, keep that in mind when you're out there. Your son or your son-in-law or your daughter or daughter-in-law has big hands. When you get out there, if you find a nice big ironstone cup and saucer that's got a bigger thumb hole, pick it up for them specifically and say, I found this when I was out running around. I thought it was kind of fun, and I'd love that if it seems like the right thing for you. It gives you something else to think about and just a really nice little connection point with somebody that is completely unexpected. When you do those little things for people in the antiques world, in the collecting world, it triggers something. It makes them go, oh, that was special. That was interesting. That was nice. I'm glad that grandma thought of that. I'm glad my mother-in-law thought of it, or my mother or my father-in-law, whoever it is, by expressing interest in those generations beyond you, younger than you, it gives them interest in what you're talking about. And again, using the crystal, using the china, using the silver is so important, and not just at the holidays, but any day, any dinner. It's a Tuesday night and everybody's home early. Well, even if it's takeout, put it on the china, because that's even a better story. You picked up, McDonald's, or you picked up chicken from the grocery store, but you decided to get out the nice china because your son got a good report card that day, or had a good, did well on a spelling bee, or did well in sports, or whatever it is. Just think of any reason to use something that you don't normally use, and it makes it more lifelike. It makes it more live in the family members who don't necessarily see it. And those things will transfer over down the road. When it is time to liquidate an estate or to pass down an estate, if there are those stories attached with it, those feelings attached with it, those emotions attached with it, well, it's not just a burden for them to accept it or inherit it. It's a blessing. They look forward to it. They're like, oh, not that they're rushing mom and dad's demise, but I really am excited to have this at my table so I can share it with my children. And then you create that legacy. Then you create that expectancy and that importance and that expectation that these items are important, not just for today, but for the future. We're going to wrap up in just a couple of minutes here. Thank you all for watching. If you have questions, please post them here. If you have questions you want to ask us privately, you can always send us a direct message here on Facebook. You can always drop us an email, info@kcauctioncompany.com. Company is spelled out. Or give us a phone call at 816-283-3633. A lot of exciting things happening here at the auction company. We are uploading the Linnister Estate auction today. That's the Linnister was an artist here in Kansas City. Really interesting artwork, really excited about it. In about a week and a half, we're going to be listing the collection of Roland and Marcia Sabates from the Oak Street Mansion here in Kansas City. Kansas City Small Art Hotel. They sold that hotel recently and have decided to sell the artwork as opposed to storing it, which is another topic. In fact, I will talk about that next week. And in 2 weeks from Monday, 2 weeks from yesterday's Thanksgiving, 2 weeks from Monday, we will be on KCPT, Channel 19 here in Kansas City, local TV station. They're going to do another antique and fine art appraisal fair. We are the sponsors of it. I'll be online. I'll be on live TV Monday, November 26th, imploring with people to support KCPT, which we do all the time. And as a part of that, you'll get tickets to an appraisal event next March or April. Have your things looked at by, and we'll have about 20 to 25 really fantastic appraisers from the area looking at things for you, from books to china to pop art to couture, silver, whatever it is. We're going to have somebody there that can talk to you about it, or know somebody we can reach out to find out about it. So keep your eyes on our website, our Facebook page, and on KCPT's page for that coming up in a couple of weeks. And then, of course, we have the holidays coming up, other estates rolling in. We're looking at a couple of estates next week already. So really exciting times here at the auction company. As you can tell, I'm in a sweater. Obviously, it's the temperature's changed. The weather's changed. Like I said, we had snow last night here in Kansas City. It's beautiful. And figure talking about family relationships, being more comfortable clothing today is appropriate for that. So again, just to kind of reiterate, we talked about spending time with your family, creating collections or acquiring collections of antiques and artwork can really do wonders for the relationships you have with your children and your grandchildren. It gives you one-on-one time. It gets them away from the electronics, and it gives them something. It gives them another connection point to antiques and your estate items that can be really, really crucial to whether or not they feel they want those items when the time is appropriate. And I think all of us, as we get older, are concerned about our legacy, are concerned about and think about what's going to happen to the stuff we've spent lifetimes accumulating and collecting. What's going to happen to that? Is it going to end up in a box at a thrift store? Is it going to end up in a box in someone's basement? Is it going to be disposed of? Or is it going to be loved and cherished for generations to come? And I think by spending that time with your children and your grandchildren, and your nieces and nephews, and whomever else it might be, instilling in them the passion and the excitement and the intelligence of collecting, you'll see going down the road that your family will be more interested in those objects, and therefore they'll have a bigger desire to keep them in the family as opposed to divesting of them. I know this talk doesn't make a lot of sense. My job is to get things to sell, but it's really sometimes heartbreaking when I see really important things leaving a family. it can be exciting, but it's also, things that should stay in families. And we're excited to help people decide what those are. So, again, if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, keep an eye on this. Next week, we'll be talking about storing antiques, keeping antiques, selling antiques. We've talked about it before, but it's always a good topic to bring up this time of year when families are getting together and discussing long-term plans, which happens every holiday season for many of our clients and customers. So thanks for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you next week, and have a fantastic weekend.